I have been obsessed with the lives of the rich and famous ever since I was a child. At age 14, I even bought a $200 mug on eBay that Prince William allegedly had drank tea from. Anyway, let me tell you the story of how I grew up as a normal teenage girl, but then rose to the highest echelons of European royalty. I dined with the kings and queens of countries, and I dated real princes all over the continent. Here's how I did it. After I graduated college, I got a job as an assistant for a famous European royal couple. I can't tell you their names, but you've heard of them for sure. The husband was already in his 60s, and I think he only hired me because I was pretty. On my first day at work, he even suggested that I should start wearing short skirts to work because it would lift the mood in the office. Yeah, he wasn't the innocent and loyal husband the media was portraying him to be. And almost every afternoon, an extremely gorgeous woman in their early 20s went into his office room and locked the door. I wondered if he was having an affair with her, so out of curiosity, I eavesdropped on their door, and guess what? I heard some very specific noises. I think you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, strictly speaking, I didn't just work for the husband, but also for his wife. And although I'd never met her in person, I felt it was my duty to let her know about her husband's affair. I turned on my smartphone camera and held it up to a small window to his office. It was so high, I couldn't see through it myself. But the husband noticed my phone and screamed, "Who dares to film me?" He stormed out of his office, pointed his finger at me, and said, "I am going to kill you for that. Now give me your smartphone." "No, I won't give you my phone. I also work for your wife, and it's my duty to inform her about your affair." "Oh, don't pretend you were acting out of duty. My wife and I have been married for 30 years. She would have a heart attack if she found out I was cheating on her." It was indeed a complicated matter, so I told him I had to think about it for a while. But the next day, he called me into his office and said, "Fine, tell me, how much money do you want? $1 million?" "I am not blackmailing you." "Oh, cut the bullshit and tell me the truth. What do you want from me?" I stood there for a while thinking before I finally said, "I want to become a royal." "What? That's ridiculous. You can only be born into a royal family or marry into a royal family. Those are the only two options." "I don't care. You will find a way, or else I'll send the video of you messing around with that woman to every newspaper in the country." Well, maybe he cared about his marriage and his wife after all, because somehow he managed to fabricate an elaborate story of how I was a bastard child to one of his deceased uncles, and even his wife believed the story when I met her for the first time in person. He also gave me a birth certificate and passport under my new name. "Now that you are part of the royal family, you'll receive a monthly allowance of $20,000. Does that sound good to you?" "That is a very generous offer, but I prefer to spend as much money as I want and to send you the bill for it afterward, okay?" I could tell he was furious, but my silence came at a high price. Anyway, I greatly enjoyed my new royal life. I rented a $20,000 a month house, dropped another $10K a month on designer clothes, and most importantly, I was invited to royal events all over Europe. And while I was only a low-ranking noble, I still stood out because I was a good-looking woman, and I didn't mind showing what I got. The royal husband often told me to dress more modestly and not draw too much attention to myself, or else my made-up backstory of being an illegitimate child would be exposed. But I couldn't help it. I wanted to find my prince, literally. So I made sure I was the hottest and most eye-catching girl at every gala I attended. One evening, I got approached by a butler who said, "Excuse me, miss. I was sent to you by my master. He would like to ask you out on a date. I'm sure you are familiar with Prince." Of course I was familiar with his master. He was one of the best-looking European royals. The reason he didn't approach me in person was that we were attending a charity event with tons of journalists and paparazzi present. Had they seen him approach and flirt with me, we would have appeared in every gossip magazine on the planet. So instead, the butler gave me his master's address, and I went to his hotel room later that night. "There you are. I gotta say, you look stunning in that dress you wore today." "Oh, thank you. You were looking good, too." This prince was very confident, but he also turned out to be a bit of a snob. He asked, "Do you prefer a 1990 DRC Latache or an 85 Chateau Margaux?" Of course, I had no clue what he was talking about, so I only responded, "I take the latter." He then shook his head and called me a tasteless pleb, whatever that meant. "So, what university did you go to? No, wait, let me guess. Cambridge or Oxford?" I blushed because I had actually just gone to a small, no-name community college, but I wanted him to like me and responded, "No, actually, I went to Harvard." We ended up drinking both bottles of wine, and the prince ended up so drunk he told me something shocking. Look, I hate my brother more than anyone else. He's a douchebag, and worse, he is first in line to become king. However, he fell in love with a filthy commoner, and once he marries her, he will lose his royal status, meaning that I will be king. But of course, only if I marry someone of royal blood. You mean someone like me? Listen, you aren't the girl of my dreams. You're a low-rank royal and you have the manners of a farm girl. But even if I was married to you for just a single day, I'd stay king for the rest of my life. Afterward, of course, I'd immediately divorce you again. Okay, but what would be in it for me? Once I'm the king, I'll be a deca-billionaire. I could pay you whatever you want. And most importantly, I'll be much richer than my douchebag brother. I wasn't sure if he was serious or just drunk. I mean, we had just met, but I figured he must have been thinking about this plan for a while. Anyway, we became a couple and started dating each other in secret over the next 2 years. Once, my prince rented us a private island in the Maldives, where a paparazzi sneaked onto our island and took a picture of us kissing on the beach. To my surprise, the paparazzi didn't even try to publish the photos in any tabloids. Instead, he offered to let us buy his camera with the pictures on it from him. He demanded $250,000 US, which was a lot of money. But we accepted the offer because neither of us wanted the whole world to find out we were dating. And while dating a wealthy man was exciting, I often felt ashamed of myself. Deep down, I knew he was only interested in me because I was pretty, and because he needed me to become king. Otherwise, he didn't seem to like or respect me at all. Meanwhile, I come from a family of very impressive women. My grandmother was the first woman to become a pilot in the country I come from. She tried to fly to all 7 continents, but unfortunately died in 1950 in a plane crash on her way to Australia. That's why my mom ended up growing up in an orphanage where she was abused for many years. But despite her difficult childhood, she managed to finish her studies and become a successful podiatrist, which is a foot doctor. Meanwhile, I was just a fraud. I'd scammed myself into a world full of rich and arrogant jerks, while trying to impress a prince who only used me for his own benefit. Worst of all, growing up, I had always claimed that I cared about global warming and climate change, but now I was flying around on private jets and driving expensive cars causing a ton of pollution. Well, one morning, the prince stormed into my room and screamed, "My brother! He has announced his wedding to his commoner girlfriend, which means that I will soon be the first in line to become king." He seemed so happy and I was excited too. I mean, soon I would become a queen and be rich and famous, just like I had always dreamed of. But after his brother got married, the prince took me to his home to introduce me to his mom. I was incredibly nervous because I still didn't know all the rules a royal must follow. I especially hated the food etiquette because there were always like 5 spoons next to my plate and I never knew which one to use when. However, the prince's mother greeted me warmly. "I am glad to finally meet you. So you are the niece of King of..." "Yes, my queen. I feel honored to finally meet you." We sat down at a table, which was set with many of the finest dishes available. Everything would have been perfect if it wasn't for the queen who kept staring at me. "So, I must admit that I did some research on you before you came here." Oh God, suddenly I got nervous. What did she know? "I called your uncle and asked him what kind of girl you are. I hope you don't mind my curiosity. I just wanted to make sure my son had picked the right girl to become his wife." "Oh, no problem. I fully understand your concerns." "Well, your uncle informed me that you aren't actually a real royal." The prince spat out his drink and yelled, "What?" "Your girlfriend is a con artist, a scammer. She is a commoner." "Is that true? Did you lie to me all this time? Tell me!" I shamefully look away. It was so embarrassing, but the prince flew into a rage and kept screaming at me. "You worthless piece of garbage wasted my time. 2 years I spent with you for what? For nothing." I decided to just leave the room because I knew I had screwed up and there was nothing left for me to say. But this story doesn't end here. I was pretty angry too. My royal uncle had revealed my secret to the queen and thereby ruined my chance to become a real princess. But I still had the video of him cheating on his wife, so I was in full revenge mode. I stormed into his office and said, "Why did you tell her?" "Oh, you fool. Once your wedding plans had become public, the media would have exposed your little secret anyway. I saved you from a big and humiliating scandal." "Oh, really? The prince had promised me $25 million for marrying him. We had even drawn up a contract." Suddenly, the husband became quiet. He knew what I wanted. And guess what? I am filthy rich now. $25 million. Boom shakalaka. I also retired from my royal life, and I'm glad to be back among normal people. They are less stuck up and more fun to be around anyway. Cheers!